Thank you so much for watching Did You Read That? And this is my first video of the channel Did You Read That? And as the name suggests, I will be talking about a lot of books over here. So you can expect a lot of bookish contents in here. So if you're someone who loves books, if you're someone who loves to read, this channel is perfect for you. And if you're someone who does not like reading that much, but then you want to develop a habit of reading, I think I would have a lot of book recommendations for you, which will help you inculcate the habit of reading, and it can make you a very diligent reader. So without any further ado, let's just start and wrap up the reads that I did in the month of January. And before I tell you all of that and the books that I read in January, I would just want to tell you one thing here, that reading is an amazing habit. It's one of the most incredible habits that you can actually develop it, in yourself. And reading is a habit which makes you a better version of yourself. So your outlook towards life becomes very positive. You become a very optimistic person, and books have a capacity to change you, to motivate you to do whatever you want and live the life the way you want to, the way you should actually. So I would just recommend you all to pick up a book and develop a habit of reading, because it definitely will change your life. And if I talk about myself, I always loved reading, but then I was never a very voracious or a very diligent reader ever since I was a child. I liked reading, but I developed this habit of diligently reading towards the end of my college, and ever since that I cannot thank this habit enough. So without any further ado, let's just discuss the books that I read this January and why you should read them too. The very first book that I read this January was Life is What You Make It by Peter Buffett. Now, if you know about Peter Buffett, you know that he's a very spectacularly famous musician, and you would love that person's music. But this book by Peter Buffett is something which is a must read for all of you. So there's a very famous quotation which states that those who read live 1,000 lives, for those who doesn't live only one. This book is a perfect example and a perfect epitome of that particular saying. Now, what do I mean by that is, this book is a life, basically the life of Peter Buffett, and this is something which you would want to have, because this has the persuasion power to change your life. So let me begin with my example. I wanted to talk about this book primarily because this book was the reason that motivated me to start my own book blog channel, to start my own blogging website, and this book had the potential to break the barriers that I was fighting with myself. So in life, it's very difficult to actually, first of all, convince yourself of what you actually want before convincing it to your parents or to anyone else. So you have to know what is this that you want and how can you get that. So this book has that power that will take you out of that dilemma. So let's say if you are doing a job but you don't know you like it or you don't, or if you're in the final year of your graduation, or in any year of your graduation for that matter, and you're not very sure as to what you want in life and what is it that you want to acquire in life, this is a must read for you, because this book has the potential to change your outlook, to change the way you see life, because it is your life and you will have to make it. And trust me when I say this book is gonna change your life. If you know Peter Buffett, you must have heard about, if you do not know Peter Buffett, you must have heard about Warren Buffett, and Peter Buffett is the son of Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett, as we all know, is one of the most wealthiest person on this planet. So, and Warren Buffett has a habit of reading. He reads a lot. So you should definitely be getting this book. This is an amazing book. The second book that I read in the month of January is Elefant by Martin Suter. Now, Elefant by Martin Suter is a fiction, and it's a very cute fictional story. Now, this is a book I would recommend if you want to start your reading, but you don't want to start by a self-help. You just want to read a story or for that matter, or a fiction book for that matter, this is an amazing read, I would say. Now, this book talks about a pink elephant, a tiny pink elephant that is created with the help of genetic engineering. That itself makes the subject matter so interesting, right? And I just read this disclaimer and I bought this book and I read this book, and it's an amazing read. So what happens is, there's a homeless person named Scotch, and one fine day he wakes up in his cave and he witnesses a pink elephant, and he imagines that maybe he drank too much or maybe he's hallucinating. But then he wakes up the next day again when he's sober, and he still see the pink elephant over there. And then the story goes on and on and on, and the cute friendship stated between the elephant and the Scotch, and Scotch names that elephant as Sabu. That cute story is amazing. The way the friendship has been portrayed, that's very adorable. Apart from that, the genetic engineering part has also been explained really well in this book. So it's an amazing and very interesting read, and you should definitely be getting this book if you want to start with a fictional story. The third book that I read was Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. Now, if I talk about Pachinko, if you're familiar by the term Pachinko, you'll know it's a very famous sport. It's a very famous game, sort of video game, we could say, that is played. I don't know much about Pachinko, but this book is a very emotional book. And this is a Korean, it's the writer, I think, the writer has tried to explain the stages, the style, and the condition of the Korean people living in Japan and what hardships they went through. So that is very emotional. Apart from that, the protagonist Sunja, and she has 2 children, and what a mother does for her child, that has been portrayed beautifully. And there are so many twists and turn points in this particular book, and it's a very tragic story. So if you want to read this book, if you like emotional books, you will enjoy this book a lot. And this book was like an emotional roller coaster ride, and I get very emotional when I read characters. When I read something, I get very much attached with the characters. So at some point of time, I was like, no, why do you have to die? But then, yes, it's an amazing book, amazing read. Min Jin Lee has done an amazing job. And apart from that, I don't want to tell you anything about this book because that would be a spoiler. So if you want me to tell more about this book, you can let me know in the comment section. I could make a specific video about this book, but I think that's enough. And telling anything more about this book would be a spoiler. This is an amazing read, amazing read. So Pachinko by Min Jin Lee is a fictional book that I read, and I cannot thank this book enough. And one more thing, this book has very beautiful descriptions, very tiny description, and very detailed, and the description of each and every scene in this book is very amazing. It's very phlegmatic, and if you're someone who has an aspiration of writing, if you want to be a writer, I think this book could be a very good learning experience. So I myself learned a lot from this book, and I sort of tried to inculcate the learning style of the author. So I think it's a very good learning and a very beautiful book, I would say. The fourth book that I read was Moonwalking with Einstein by Joshua Foer. Now, so this is also a self-help book, I would say, but I was not that much happy by this book because this book talks about the memory palace and how to remember things in a very easy and a comprehensive manner, but I did not find them very much practical. I did try to inculcate something, so it was good. So basically this book talks about learning techniques and how to improvise your memory and how can you train your memory to literally learn anything and everything under the sun. And yes, the author has done a brilliant job because the author went through the memory training experience himself, and then he has described that in this particular book. But I did try to inculcate some things while learning. Like, let's say if I had a problem remembering something for my examinations or something, I tried to remember some things and they were helpful. But if there are like a lot of things that you want to remember, this is very tiring and an excruciating process, and I ended up giving up this process at all. So if you have a keen interest in improvising your memory, only then I will recommend this book. Apart from that, if you're just looking for something which is more of a self-help or more of a fiction, or it's not a fiction by any chance, you could call it a science book, you could call it a self-help book, but I would not call it a self-help book. Rather, I would just call it a science book, which actually tries to help you to know, understand how can you improvise and increase your memory to the full potential. But I did not quite like this book. So, based on this review, if you want, you can still go ahead and check this book out. But if you do not have anything to learn, I would not recommend this book for now. And the fifth book that I read this January, and this is my favorite one, this is The Palace of Illusions by Chitra, Banarjee, Divakaruni. Now, I do know that I read this book so much late in my life, but this was worth it. This is an amazing book. Now, The Palace of Illusions talks about the Indian epic Mahabharata, but from Draupadi's perspective, from Panchali's perspective. Now, Panchali, if you understand, is the woman who has 5 husbands. And we talk about Draupadi. So Draupadi and Panchali, it's the same woman. The name's just different. And so what happened is, there's a very funny story how I came to know about this book. So I was attending a fest in a Delhi University College, and I sort of saw a fashion show based on this theme, and I loved that fashion show as well. So, and after, let's say 1 or 2 weeks later, I was, shopping for some books in a book fair, and I saw this catchy title, and I was like, this title sounds familiar. I've heard this title in a fashion event. So I got this book, and then I read this book, and it was an amazing book. Draupadi's voice needs to be heard, and it's a very famous line which states, it's a deeply human story about a woman born into a man's world. And this is an amazing book. After reading this book, your point of view towards Draupadi will definitely change. And my favorite love story is the unsaid and the untold love story between Draupadi and Karna, which is portrayed beautifully by the author. I also got a Hindi version of this book for my mom, and also I gifted myself the special edition version. This is a special edition version signed by the author herself, but if you want, you can also get the normal paperback version. I'm adding the links of all the books mentioned in the video in the description box, so you can most certainly go ahead, check out these books, and basis your preference, whatever you want, you can go ahead and read it. I think that was all for January that I read. I have also read around 3 to 4 books this February, and I'll be posting videos about that as well. And this year I made a pledge to myself to read 1 book per week, and I'm able to do that, and trust me, it's helping me a lot. It's helping me to grow a better version of myself. It's helping me understand and comprehend life very easily, and of course your language and your communication improves and enhances a lot. So I would definitely tell you to read something. Just develop a habit of reading, and you will never ever regret it. You'll fall in love with reading the moment you start doing it. You just need a good book to start, and trust me, you'll fall in love with reading. And I think that was up for this particular video. I'll be creating contents about books, about a lot of literature works, and I'll keep doing that on this channel. So just if you find this video helpful, just go ahead and hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe to my channel, and just help me grow. And I thank you all for actually coming and watching my videos. I really thank you all. I really appreciate your time a lot. So, and I hope I was very much helpful to you, and just stay tuned, and I'll be uploading more videos about books. So go ahead and start reading. Till then, bye bye.